All right, so the Sonjay Dutt Abyss story.
So they're both going to WWE to work backstage. They're not going to be there as wrestlers. They're both. It's going to be, from what I gather, it's going to be for NXT. And Abyss was not under contract. But he was working in the office. He was not working on creative. He has not been on creative for several months. I've seen that written, but that's not the case. He was on creative. Sonjay was a key guy on creative. Sonjay and Jimmy Jacobs were actually the people writing the television, although the creative direction is Don Callis. But Sonjay also did talent relations. He did a lot of stuff, and he's, very, very well, very well respected. He got very high marks from the people who worked in TNA that are in WWE as far as being a good acquisition. I think it probably, they were looking for new guys in WWE, and so he got the nod. And so on the creative team, it's going to be, Don Callis, Scott D'Amore, Jimmy Jacobs, Conan, and Tommy Dreamer. So those are going to be the people in charge of the creative. So Conan and Tommy Dreamer are going to be like the replacements. And Sonjay did have a contract, but they allowed him out of the contract since he got this good offer. They didn't want to hold him back from that.
It's another one that I got to put on the list.
Yeah. And the LAX match with Phoenix and Pentagon that was on Impact on Friday night. That nobody Impact, the first week of Impact on Pursuit did 12,250 viewers.
That doesn't even seem like, how can you do that?
That shocks me. Even though it's like a channel nobody gets, you would think that they would have, at least 50,000 fans who are going to follow them, right? Hardcore, right? No.
How do you run a company with that small of a viewership?
I don't know.
Wow.
Impact.
Yes, I've been watching Impact. With my schedule, and thankfully I know a guy that's in Impact, so it's like I've managed to, for my convenience. He sends me screeners.
Cage?
Yeah, Cage is my in. I'm actually pretty good friends with both of the executive vice presidents, so I get screeners from him so I don't have to watch it in my living room on television. I can watch it wherever I want on my iPad. So I've been watching the last few weeks, and I know there's not a lot of viewers, at least not in the States anymore, but there's a lot of really good stuff on this show. I love their video packages and many of their angles and stories. And actually tonight, if this goes up early enough, the Uncaged, which is sort of their big show, and Tessa and Taya have their street fight for the Knockouts Championship, and there's the big four-way with Moose, Cage, Cross, and Johnny, and it's like there's some really good stuff. I'm not a fan of the Su Yung darkness, superpowers, supernatural elements of the match. I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff, but there's some pretty good wrestling on the show, and there's a couple of really strong angles. So if you have the ability, and if you have the internet, and you're listening to the show, you have the internet, you can watch it on Twitch Live. I recommend you give it a chance. I'm actually a really big fan of Killer Kross. I think he's a tremendous... I don't like using the word character because people think it's like, oh, he has a good character. I'm like, no, he's an interesting character. He's a strange, weird dude that I find very intriguing. He doesn't have a character. He is a character. And I find him really fascinating. And so it's, again, if you have, what's the station it's on now? I don't even remember.
It's on Pursuit, and tonight we have Johnny Impact, Killer Kross, Moose, and Brian Cage in a four-way for the Impact title. Taya Valkyrie, Tessa Blanchard in a street fight for the Women's Championship. Team AAA versus Team Impact, and Ethan Page versus Willie Mack. That's the lineup tonight.
Yeah, and he's in the Team team match. But there's a dude, Vikingo, from Mexico. That dude's amazing. He's got some really good. He's got a lot of potential. If someone in the U.S. doesn't sign him in the reasonably near future, I would be very surprised. That dude really does some good stuff and has good fire. I've seen him 2 or 3 times on the show now, and he's quite impressive.
Impact TV taping notes.
So the big thing with Impact right now at the TV tapings in Vegas, so they're going to do a show on April the 28th in Toronto. And anyway, they're building everything to Johnny Impact against Brian Cage. So Johnny Impact and Taya both turned heel on Brian Cage. That was a deal with Killer Cross and Brian Cage, and Brian Cage saved Johnny Impact against Killer Cross, but in fact, Johnny Impact was swerving him, and then they turned on Brian Cage. So Brian Cage is now the top babyface. Johnny Impact is now a heel champion, and that's the direction. And then Jordynne Grace is the new challenger for Taya, who's now a heel. She was a babyface. And they're also going to do, they're building towards Gail Kim coming out of retirement to face Tessa Blanchard, and LAX against Pentagon and Fenix again, because those guys have really great matches.
We got a lot to get into here today. Lance was not here on the show last Friday. He was working the Impact Wrestling tapings, scheduled to be a producer and an agent, and ended up an on-screen character. Isn't that right, Lance?
I guess you found some spoilers. I was beginning to wonder if anyone would. I got a text from one buddy that said he saw some. So
I hear things, Lance.
Yeah, I would hope you do. It's your job.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a busy weekend. I did my first official gig as an agent or producer. I'd kind of done it unofficially at times in WWE or OVW, but got to do it for the first time and got to work in the truck on headset and help direct camera traffic and so forth. And as you say, I don't want to give out too much spoiler-wise, but I did end up with a brief bit of on-camera. I will not and am not wrestling, but Lance Storm did make an appearance, and thankfully the crowd in Windsor, Canada, was very excited to see me, and I got a good response.
They remembered you, Lance?
They remembered me.
Wow.
Yes. They didn't chant "I deserved it" or "I still have it."
That's what I was going to ask. They chant "You still got it"?
No, they cheered like a good crowd. I'm a big fan of my Canadian fans. They reacted as fans often do, and in some ways probably should. They cheered or booed what they wanted.
Well, I guess there will be more to come with Lance and Impact. You had fun, I presume?
I did, although it's funny, because I'd never actually done the gig before, and when I had done it, helping fit layout matches with the girls, or, on house shows and stuff, helped guys with their matches and stuff, I didn't entirely know what the job entailed, and, I was given a couple of segments, and I got everybody to put their stuff together, and was good with that, and then, minutes before the show starts, I'm like, oh yeah, I forget who it was, Scott probably. It's like, oh yeah, you're in the truck. I'm like, oh, okay, where's the truck? And it's like, takes me out to the truck, and it's like, yeah, here's your headset. This way. I'm like, okay, what exactly am I doing in here? And it's like, well, you need to go to break spots in the finish. And I'm like, all right, that would have been handy to know a few hours ago, but I managed to get it all done and enjoyed it. And the second day, with far more experience under my belt, the second day went
far
even
more
better.
Experience, so yeah, a day.
Well, a day is more than zero.
That is more than zero. I don't know if I'd call that far more experience.
You could say hundreds of times more experience. Infinite more experience, yes.
So are you going to do it again?
I'm going to be at the Toronto pay-per-view, and they're doing a day of TV as well after the pay-per-view. 2 days in Toronto at the... I forget the name of it. Something Sportsplex. It was where they did they did a pay-per-view there not that long ago. But yeah, it's a pretty cool complex in Toronto. So I'll be doing 2 days there, the end of April, and then we will have to see about moving forward. I enjoyed it enough, and they enjoyed having me enough that it's going to get down to how much my wife enjoyed me being gone for a weekend. With 2 dogs, it's a lot of work for her when I go away. So if she finds that it's not worth the financial and hardship of her having to deal without me for a week, then I may not be doing it beyond April. But I certainly enjoyed it. It was great to be around the boys in the creative process and stuff. There's a lot of talented guys there, so it was great to stand at ringside, sit at ringside, and help brainstorm and put ideas together. And it's fun to watch guys put it all together and have it work out. And so that was a lot of fun.
I'm sure he's not. I'm sure he's not. So the thing, it's interesting because, and I would presume they'll play this into the storyline. I mean, I think he helped train Morrison, and he certainly trained Taya, who's Morrison's wife or Impact's wife. So there's that. I don't know what that means, but I mean, when I watch Impact, I have fun. I think it's good.
They just need more people to watch it. Nobody's
watching it. They're on a station that no one gets. They'll get. They just don't watch on it. It's in a bad time slot, and I mean, it's for a show that no one's watching. It's really well produced. It's kind of like I'm watching it, going like, God, it's too bad that like this show wasn't on when people actually saw the show. When they were on Spike, without, not that this would have done better than when they had Hogan and those guys, but the booking's better,
mm-hmm.
and they're not gonna do all the stupidity that, just make all the stupid moves that Dixie made.
This coming Sunday, we've got an Impact pay-per-view, Rebellion. It's coming up from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Johnny Impact, Brian Cage for the title is the main event, with Lance Storm acting as the special guest referee. That's the main event of the show. Lucha Brothers LAX for the tag team titles, Full Metal Mayhem.
That match is going to be on fire. Those matches, whenever those guys wrestle, the LAX guys, they're really improved. It's like before they worked really hard, but they've gotten, like last time I saw them, which was at PWG, and I've seen them on Impact Television as well. But when I saw them live at PWG, it's like you can see that they've gotten, I mean, they're on fire. They're like this team that all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're really good. And we know how to work a good match now. I mean, not that they didn't know how to work a good match before, but there was a difference between them now and even like a couple months ago, where it's just like, hey, we're at the level of Pentagon and Fenix. Whereas before, I think that they were not at the level. That's the reality. They were not at the level of Pentagon and Fenix. Now I'm not saying they're quite at the level, but they're enough at the level that they know that they're not out of their league, and they're not. So that's going to be really good. I'm really looking forward to Gail Kim and Tessa Blanchard, because Gail Kim hasn't wrestled in a while, and I don't know. I mean, I think that may be like a real sleeper of a match. I mean, maybe I'll be disappointed, but I'm really looking forward to that one. Rich Swann and Sami Callihan are going to have a good match. Yeah, I mean, the Cage and Johnny Impact is going to be good for sure. The episode of Taya and Jordynne Grace will be good.
That's right.
Yeah, it's
how refreshing, a 5-match pay-per-view. I'm sure they'll add a couple of more, but
I'm sure they'll add probably.
It ain't 17.
Well, 17's never a good idea. Yeah.
All right, we got the TNA Rebellion show tomorrow, which is this being Sunday. Johnny Impact, Brian Cage for the title with Lance Storm as referee. Lucha Brothers versus LAX in Full Metal Mayhem, which should be completely insane. Gail Kim, Tessa Blanchard, Rich Swann, Sami Callihan.
Have you seen the Gail Kim, Tessa Blanchard stuff?
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, I mean, Tessa went to the restaurant in Vegas that...
oh, man.
What?
That's trouble.
Oh,
her husband's restaurant?
Oh, yeah, they did a vignette. It was great. It's like typical wrestling. I mean, it's like, she goes backstage with the waiters.
Typical wrestling is good. I'm a fan of it.
Okay, so she goes to she's just like, it reminded me actually of like I mean, no, there's never been they did not ever do a skit like this, but they could have done a skit like this.
Ohio Valley?
No. This, Ohio Valley probably could have done it too.
Yeah.
But Ohio Valley would have learned it from World Class.
Sure.
Okay. So it reminded me, I'm watching this, I'm going like, this is like World Class Wrestling in 1984 when they were at the peak of their creativity. And, and Tessa Blanchard's like one of the Freebirds, or all three Freebirds. So that she goes into the restaurant, she's like making a scene in front of all the customers. She like grabs food from one of the customers' plates and starts eating it. Then she wants to go, backstage, and the people are going, you can't do it. And she goes, no, I'm going to do it. She runs back. She's looking for Robert Irvine, or I think she called her like Mr. Gail Kim.
Yeah.
So she's looking for him, and he's not working that day. So they have so she runs through the guy who's like washed the silverware, just got it out of the washing machine or the dishwasher. She knocks it all on the ground and goes, you need to wash this again. Then she's pouring, she's going to the chefs and the waiters, and she's pouring like condiments all over them. She's just making a mess. It was well done. Yeah. And then Gail Kim, they come back to Gail Kim, and Gail Kim's like, I was thinking of pressing charges, but instead I'm going to like beat her up, I guess is what the story is. So Gail Kim's going to teach her respect. But Gail Kim said that she reminds her of herself when she was the same age. And Tessa didn't like that because Tessa thinks she's way better than Gail Kim at the same age.
Oh.
So
no, that's a good story for a program.
No, it was good stuff. I liked every bit of it. It wasn't.
Does that mean Robert Irvine has to be there tomorrow? With condiments for the finish?
Oh, and they report on Tessa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slips on something,
That's not a bad idea. We'll see if they pick up on that. They actually can hear the show before they do it, so it's possible.
It's true. They can find ketchup by the time the show goes on the air.
Yeah.
I don't know if they could find Robert Irvine, but they could definitely get the condiments.
Well, there's a real good chance Robert Irvine's going to be there. It's Gail Kim's last match. I would say, if I'm going to bet...
Well, she did have her last match a few months ago, so maybe
But this is really her last
smartened
match.
Up.
Yeah, but it's her husband.
Yes.
I'm going to go 95% plus he's in the front row.
Well, they better do this. They better play this into the finish then.
Yeah.
We have Rich Swann, Sami Callihan, OVE rules match for the X Division title. Taya Valkyrie, Jordynne Grace for the Impact Knockouts title.
Okay, so this angle was in a gym. So Jordynne Grace is bench pressing. So you know what happens, right? When you're bench pressing.
Taya pushes a bar down on her neck.
Yeah, but no, it got worse. Then they end up fighting, which looked kind of cheesy. And then Taya DDT'd her on a 45-pound plate.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and
that's worse than a 35-pound plate. You get DDT'd onto it.
But and Taya hit her with a dumbbell.
Oh.
And
that's brutal.
But I didn't like this one nearly as much, which is why
too corny, getting DDT'd on the plate and being hit with the weight.
A little too corny for me. Yeah. But a little too corny.
And then we've got the Rascalz versus the North. Ethan Page and Josh Alexander.
And Moose.
6-man tag team match.
Yeah. Well, the Rascalz are great. So, I mean, this is going to be a really good show. I don't know how many people are going to watch it, but it's going to be a really good show.
So there you go. It's available tomorrow, I guess, on traditional pay-per-view.
Yes.
Any other outlets?
Fight TV.
Fight TV, yeah. Fight TV can watch it as well.
Yeah.
So big news is Brian Cage wins the championship, but then is hurt.
He's in the hospital. So he came out, and his back had all the cupping marks. So you know that he's got a bad back going in. And so during the match, they did a spot where it was an amazing spot. Johnny Impact. Johnny Impact does the Spanish Fly with Brian Cage off the ramp to the floor, straight to the floor. And, it's really impressive.
I know Cage does a lot of stuff for being such a big guy, but that just sounds... He's so big to be taking that move.
Yeah, well, yeah. And he continued the match. It didn't seem like anything was necessarily wrong. Maybe a little bit wrong, but I can't say when I watched it I noticed anything at all. And then, went through, won the championship. They did the only thing was, so the finish was like the drill claw, and he barely got him up. And And I didn't really think of it. It just kind of looked like a bad-looking finish. So they do that, and then Michael Elgin comes out. They do their little interview thing, or their angle for the next pay-per-view. And then, I guess backstage, Cage could barely walk. So they rushed him to the hospital, and that was the last I heard, was a couple hours ago, he was in the hospital. So I didn't hear any diagnosis or anything like that. But yeah, it was... But he agreed to that while he was clearly hurt already.
How did the crowd react to Elgin?
It was really hard to tell. They didn't go crazy for him, but it wasn't like they thought it was nobody booed him at all. It wasn't like that. There was this big backlash. Oh my God, it's Michael Elgin, a couple years ago. I mean, they were fine, and I think it was more they were really happy Brian Cage won. I think it was more they were happy Brian Cage won, and it was okay, Michael Elgin's here, and Don Callis, obviously this is his thing. He was selling it really big. This guy left New Japan to win the try to win the Impact Championship type of a thing, and he showed up and he laid out Cage with an Elgin bomb. So Cage took another big bump. And they made it pretty clear. I mean that if Impact's okay, I mean if Brian Cage is okay, that Elgin would be facing him for the championship. Elgin looked phenomenal. I mean, physically, he looked the most impressive I think he's ever looked. Not big, really, but super cut, even more than when he was in Japan, and real tanned, and you know what I mean. It's he clearly has been training for this, and. That's I guess that's why I quit New Japan.
Do you know is this going to be his home base?
Yeah. Because the deal was when he and there were a couple other guys. Harry Smith was another one, but those two guys in particular, I know Callis really wanted, and New Japan told them that we work with Ring of Honor, so you can't, if you're under contract to us, you can't go to Impact. So I know Ishimori went, but Ishimori was under a previous deal with Noah when he went, and just fulfilling his deal type stuff. So I guess Elgin's probably going to get in New Japan. Elgin really wasn't getting a big push anymore.
Yeah,
he was, and in Impact, he's going to be main eventing a pay-per-view and just probably getting whatever.
And then LAX won the tag team titles.
Yeah, in a Full Metal Mayhem match. That was a really wild match. And I think that the story behind that is that, none of this is done, but everything that I'm kind of hearing is that Fenix and Pentagon are soon going to be exclusive in the United States to AEW. I know that the deal that AEW and AAA were trying to make with Fenix and Pentagon was to make them, get them under contract where they would only work for AAA in Mexico and they would only work for AEW. So that would get them out of the Crash and out of CMLL, and it would also mean Impact and also MLW. And I know that MLW was going under the idea that they're finishing them up. Mm-hmm. So this looked like maybe the same thing, that they're finishing up. Because at the end, it's almost like they do a curtain call. They kill each other, with weapons and everything like that. And then when it's over, Conan comes out and goes okay, everybody, let's say Lucha Brothers, LAX, and LAX goes, why do you say Lucha Brothers first? And Conan just goes, because I said so, and they just all hugged, and it was over. And then the whole locker room came out, I guess. I don't know if it was to thank Fenix and Pentagon or just to, celebrate that they put on a pretty good show. The last half of the show was pretty good. The first half of the show was so-so. But, I guess that's the way a wrestling card should be, you could argue. Where you just start and you give people, reasonably entertaining stuff, but nothing particularly great. And then the good stuff is at the end. And there was nothing so blow away that nobody could follow anything. I mean, every important match could follow the one before. There was never the dud match or whatever, the one that the crowd wasn't into at the end.
So going back to the show that they're going to run, Slammiversary is going to be that the day after G1, and G1, we've talked about it, has been pretty disappointing from a live ticket perspective.
Yeah, it still is. Although New Japan's still convinced that they're going to have a giant walk up because it's G1. I don't think. See that I don't think so either, because I think these shows. The reality is, okay, that in my this is my thought, that in any of these markets, unless you're and look, even WWE, even if you're WWE and you just do a regular show in these markets, what are you doing? Like if it's a major market, maybe you're gonna do 5,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because 6,000 is even a good crowd for them for house shows. For a Raw, maybe 8. For a SmackDown, maybe 5 or 6. For a pay-per-view, maybe 10, or 12 or whatever. But if it's anyone else, you're really looking at 1,500 people, and anytime you beat that, I mean, I guess AEW in Jacksonville is probably going to get 4,000 or 5,000 actually for that show, because they'll probably sell out. But but for the most part, it's if you're getting past like whatever, it's going to have to be like out of market fans coming in, because I don't think there's anything. I guess they did do close to 7,000 at the Cow Palace, and that really wasn't a traveling show.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, that's kind of weird that they were able to do that.
What was their original goal? What, like 10,000 or something, or 8,000? What?
Dallas?
Yeah.
I mean,
did they think they could actually come closer or even sell out that building?
I'm not sure what the goal. I mean, I think that they probably went in there thinking G1 that they could sell it out. Yeah, But I mean, their goal. So Lance Archer's job right now is to be there, like, to push ticket sales. He's supposed to do like a lot of promotional stuff. They still expect a big walk up and big, late sales. And San Francisco did have good, really late sales.
Yeah.
So, once they announce the card, which will be right after, they'll announce the card after Dominion. So, they expect that like that last Dominion's like the 9th, I think. So it'd be from the 9th until July the 6th. So they'll have a month, 4 weeks. So they expect that that's when they'll have like the big rush, I guess.
And so I guess what I'm getting at is, if Impact knows how poorly the ticket sales have been so far, why is that the show you want to kind of piggyback on?
That's a good question. I don't really have an answer, but they're probably going to run, knowing Impact, they're probably going to run like, 500, 1,200 type of seat building. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't take as much to make it look good.
Right.
But I mean, as far as, I guess there's really no WWE show in July. I guess, July, because they usually do it that weekend anyway, the anniversary weekend. So I think that, but obviously they're going there now. Of course, Raw's there the previous Monday. Mm-hmm. So, we'll see.
I mean, because I'm going to be there for G1. I can't imagine extending my trip to watch Impact, no matter how. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be, pretty good. But extending to Sunday and then coming home for work Monday, like that, that makes it a little harder.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's hard because it's not like Monday's a holiday.
Right.
If Monday was a holiday, I could see it. But Monday not being a holiday, I mean, and so you're relying on the local audience, and the local audience for the most part probably isn't going to want to go to 2 straight nights. I mean, like the super hardcores, but how much, if those Dallas fans are super hardcores, they're probably going to go to Raw on Monday. And then they're going to go to New Japan on, so it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily the right market to go to. I think it'd be better to, maybe go somewhere else. Maybe, but I don't know. I guess you could go. What was it? The next weekend's Jacksonville, right? So piggyback off of them. At least there's going to be more more travelers going to Jacksonville than there are going to Dallas. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the end, but it looks like it. But right now, based on advance, there will be. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that sounds.
But Jacksonville's not a good wrestling market either.
Right.
Compared Dallas is a better wrestling market than Jacksonville. Who knows? Maybe they can bring in the Von Erichs.
Maybe. I mean,
they've done it before.
Coming out of that.
Yeah. I mean which is Wednesday. Yeah, but. Impact brought in the Von Erichs with Kevin wasn't Slammiversary a couple of years ago, and they did like, I don't remember the number, but I thought it was like 3,500 people, which for Impact at the time was like a phenomenal number. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember they drew well, and the Von Erichs were over like crazy, or at least Kevin was.
You want to go over the rest of the show?
Yeah, okay. So let me get my notes here. Yeah, it did not start. So the opening match was Petey Williams, Aiden Prince, Ace Austin, Jake Christ, Cousin Jake, who is Jake something, who's kind of like out of place in a lot of ways because this guy's like a big, they said 6'6", but I mean, he's like a 6'2", 6'2". Did you didn't meet him, did you?
No.
I met him a couple months ago.
Where'd you meet him at?
Chicago.
Oh, yeah, well, I wasn't there.
Right. At All In, as a matter of fact. Or not at All In, but I met him at the AAW show that weekend. So, I mean, he was probably, he's maybe 265, 270. He's like a big power lifter guy who he's basically Cody Deaner's cousin, Jake Deaner. And now they're just calling him Cousin Jake. And Eddie Edwards. And it was just like a bunch of spots for 5 minutes. And Petey Williams did the Canadian Destroyer on Jake Deaner, not Jake Christ. And Ace Austin cradled Petey Williams and got the pin. And yeah, it was just like moves. The crowd didn't really react much to a lot of the stuff. It kind of like, it was just there. I mean, there was some cool moves. That's about it. Then they announced Impact Plus, a new streaming service, and they already had Global Wrestling Network. So I don't know what the difference is.
So is it just a rebranding?
I think it's a rebranding because they said those of you who have Global Wrestling Network will be able to get Impact Plus, and they were pushing that they're going to have like at least one live event per month. And they announced, but it's the same thing where they work with like a local promotion because they announced like a show with House of Glory Wrestling.
Don't they already put stuff on Twitch for free?
Yeah.
So you're going to pay for a service, and they already have shows on Twitch.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Rohit Raju and Scarlett Bordeaux. This was not really too good. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't too good. It's hard, man versus woman, trying to work it. And Scarlett Bordeaux.
You and Jim just had like you guys did like 5 to 10 minutes on that the other day.
Yeah, it can be done. I mean, and it can be done spectacularly with the right people. Yeah, Scarlett kicked him low and gave him an Omori driver and won. And it was a 5-minute match. There's nothing much to it. I mean, Scarlett is interesting because it's like she's not super over. She's over a little bit. But it's almost like you watch the TV and you think that she's going to be like super over. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't like they were, I mean, they definitely were for her. Good, but not great. Then Moose, Ethan Page, and Jake Alexander against the Rascalz, Desmond Xavier, Zachary Wentz, and Trey Miguel. This was, again, a lot of big moves. I mean, this was really... The moves were actually really good in this match, but the crowd reaction wasn't that big to them. And it was, this was almost like Arena Mexico moves, like a good Arena Mexico match when it comes to moves, but the crowd wasn't that strong for it. I think they liked it, but yeah, I mean, Trey Miguel did, running flip dive. He did a springboard Hurricane Rana. Wentz did a springboard. What was the one? Somebody did a tope, and which one was it? It might have been Zachary Wentz. Yeah. So Zachary Wentz did a tope, and Jake Chris. No. Zachary Wentz did a springboard into a diamond cutter on Moose. Zachary Wentz did a shooting star press off the ramp on Page. Trey Miguel did a running flip dive, but Moose caught him and threw him into the barricade. Desmond then came off the ramp with a cannonball on Moose on the floor. There was Trey Miguel, I think, did a twisting splash on Josh Alexander. Page powerbombed Trey Miguel. Springboard plancha by Zachary Wentz. Rack into a spine buster. It ended up with them holding Page and Alexander held Desmond, and Moose speared him and pinned him. it was easy to watch. So Melissa Santos is on the show now. She's from Lucha Underground. So she's doing interviews.
Mm-hmm.
So Melissa Santos is like, for those of you who never watched Lucha Underground, I thought she was like a absolutely phenomenal ring announcer, like maybe one of the best. And because of the uniqueness and everything, in some ways I think could have been, you could even call her the best. I mean, she really wasn't the best, but I just loved her voice. I thought she was a phenomenal ring announcer. As an interviewer, nothing special. So they have a ring announcer who's just a generic ring announcer. She should be the ring announcer. I don't think that she should be doing the interviews. But, you know, it's like the mentality that you've got to have a pretty girl do interviews. So she fits that bill, so she was doing them. And it wasn't like she was, I don't know. She was so much better as a ring announcer, that's all. So Taya Valkyrie and Jordynne Grace. She
and Cage they're married?
They have a kid together. I think they're married. They've been together for a couple years. Taya Valkyrie and Jordynne Grace for the Knockouts Championship. It wasn't that great. I didn't think. Taya retained. Lots of near falls. Taya retained with the Road to Valhalla. They really push that Jordynne Grace is super strong. So Taya kept working on her arm. And so when Grace made her comeback doing moves, she didn't have the power that she should have had. So it was storytelling-wise, it all made sense, but it was just okay. And Sami Callihan and Swann was the first match that like really got over with the crowd. It was just, staple gun stuff and cookie sheet stuff and chair stuff and Legos, that kind of a match. It's not my favorite kind of a match. It got over. It had some intensity. It felt more like a match than all the matches up to this point. And Sami Callihan used a claw to the groin early. Swann came back with a claw to the groin, and then got a barbed wire baseball bat, hit him with it, and then used a crossface with the barbed wire baseball bat, and got the submission and retained his championship. So, very good match. If you're, into weapons type matches, it was excellent. So next we had Gail Kim and Tessa Blanchard, which I thought that match was great. Tessa Blanchard's phenomenal. She's just, we always talk about like with WWE. So, how people will say, and you hear this all the time, that it looks like these guys now, they're playing wrestler, but they're not really wrestlers, right? Tessa is like the exact opposite. She looks like she is in a fight. She's intense. Everything she does, she never breaks character until the end of the match, where she did. But she's out there just intense, like a warrior, fighter, and all this. And Gail Kim was right with her, and Gail Kim is a great athlete. Even again at 42, she's in good shape. She's in good shape for her age. But there's both of them. I mean, it wasn't just Tessa doing this match. Gail Kim was excellent too. This was, better than. I would say this would be, So what Tessa has is the same thing Ronda Rousey has. That real great intensity, that feeling like that. She actually, like Terry Funk would have, that you're like really, Ric Flair would have that too. Like you're really in a fight. Charlotte sometimes gets it, but she had it the whole match. She's excellent. And Gail was right there like too. So, the finish was, Tessa did the Magnum, which is jumping. She jumped like off the top ropes, easily halfway across the ring into a code breaker, which is the Magnum, and then Gail actually kicked out of that. And then she did, basically it was like she did a submission, and Gail Kim made the ropes, and then Tessa pulled her back, and Gail Kim tapped out. So, it was clean. I mean, this is Gail Kim's last match, so it made sense for her to lose. And then Tessa went to ringside, and Tully was there. They showed Tully do an interview with her before the match, and she's hugging Tully. They're both crying, because it's your son, your daughter, and Tessa's, her dad's there, and she just slingshot suplex at one point, or at least tried.
Oh, that's cool.
She tried. Gail actually reversed out of it. Gail did that Bret Hart figure four that Bret taught her. Mm-hmm. Everybody else botches, but she didn't. And so then what happened after that? They're crying together. And then she goes back in the ring and offers her hand to Gail. Gail Kim shakes hands and they're hugging. So it's kind of weird because they have this big feud. She messed up the restaurant and all this. And then at the end, it's almost like remember when Triple H did the match with Sting, where he's using the sledgehammer and all this, and at the end, they all shake hands. It's
the war was over. That's why.
Yeah, I know. Well, I guess this is the same thing. It's like they're not going to do a rematch, so why not? And they, it went from this grudge match to the passing of the torch match, where the idea that Gail's passing the torch to her. I mean, and it worked, but it was great. The whole match was great. Then Impact in Cage with Lance Storm as ref, and this match was very good. But it's like, the whole history of Impact. You always have all those referee bumps and low blows and interference and all that stuff, and then the kick out. It was like when Jeff Jarrett was there. It's the exact same thing. You do it too much. So Lance was distracted, and then Johnny Impact gave Lance Storm a sliding kick, so he's out of there. Cage is bleeding all over the place. Johnny threw the belt to Taya, so Cage thinks Taya hit him with a belt shot. Cage powerbombs Taya, so that gives Johnny a chance to hit Cage with the belt shot. And Johnny Bravo, was the referee there, who's now part of Johnny Impact's team with Taya, he pulls his shirt off, actually. He's got a referee shirt underneath, and he counts, and Cage kicks out at 2. What's interesting is that Don Callis goes like, even if he counts 3, this isn't going to count, which actually makes sense because it shouldn't. But he said that, so then he goes for Starship Pain, which he didn't hit very well. Cage kicked out. Then Lance Storm super kicked Johnny Bravo, and then Brian Cage super kicked Johnny Impact, and then hit the bad looking drill claw. I think his back was already shot by this point, and got the pin. And then Michael Elgin showed up in great shape. They do a stare down, and Michael Elgin ends up hitting him and laying out with the Elgin bomb.
Did Lance keep his promise?
What was the promise?
No Shawn Michaels shorts.
Oh, yeah. He didn't wear Shawn Michaels shorts. No, he just wore a referee shirt and pants, He was fine, he was, to me, like, the best referee is the one you don't notice anyway. But I actually was paying attention to him, and he's doing everything logically that the referee should do. He wasn't a clown or anything like that, or there's no fast count, slow count.
Well, that's why you have him, right? Lance is.
Yeah. Lance was there to be like the straight laced guy who was gonna make it fair, and as a referee, he was fair, and it wasn't like Nick Patrick being fair and then screwing up or that. I mean, yeah, it was good. It was good. And then the LAX Pentagon Fenix was just was a wild match. The Lucha Brothers opened with a double running flip dive, and like the first move of the match, putting those two guys through tables. They kind of more put themselves through tables. They had 2 tables set up on the floor. They both do the dives, and then they kind of went high, so they're actually putting themselves through the tables. And then Pentagon threw a drink in Santana's eyes. What else? They put a garbage can on Santana's head and double super kicked the garbage can, which is also a spot that was done in the Callihan-Rich Swann match. And that's the thing. You have 2 big weapons matches, and I've seen this on Impact pay-per-views before, where I think one weapons match is fine, but when you're doing 2 on the same show, it feels like you've already seen it before when you do it again here. But this match was so good that I would not call that a criticism, because this match, these guys worked really, really hard. Santana threw Pentagon over the barricade a couple rows deep. LAX brought in a ladder. They were brawling with chairs. Conan handed LAX forks. Pentagon and Fenix threw chairs in LAX's face. LAX then got chairs and threw them back in Pentagon and Fenix's face. Fenix did a double foot stomp on Ortiz. There was a spike package pile driver on Santana on a bunch of chairs, and he still kicked out. That was almost like silly because it was a spike pile driver on chairs, and he kicks out at 2. I like on that one was like, that was a little much for me. Then Fenix does he walks the ropes, does a Spanish fly pulling, which one was it? Ortiz. It was Ortiz. Off a ladder, and then he goes backwards out of the ring through a table with the Spanish fly. That was crazy. That was the spot of maybe the spot of the night.
But that's another Spanish fly.
Yeah, that they done in the match before.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was some repeated stuff. There was Pentagon did a penta driver on Santana on a chair. Then Pentagon poured a million thumbtacks on a table, so he knew the big table spot's coming. Santana was hitting Pentagon with a fork. Ortiz powerbombed Pentagon off a ladder, through a table with all the thumbtacks, and then pinned him to win the belts. And then at the end, both teams hug after killing themselves. So, and then the locker room one comes out. But yeah, I would say that the last, the last 3 matches pretty much made the show. Actually, you could say last 4, because the one before that's Rich Swann and Sami Callihan. That was really good. So yeah, I mean, I would say easily thumbs up show, and second half or whatever from the last 4 matches was really strong, fun. Nothing boring from that point on.
Well, what's the expected viewership of this show? Because I mean, I guess it's great if you do, good show. Then people go, okay, I can.
Yeah, but who watched?
Right, and so that
I don't. I mean, I don't think a lot of people watched. I mean, it's hard to get people to spend that kind of money on a pay-per-view when you're used to spending $9.99 now for your wrestling thing for WWE.
And how much was the Crockett Cup show the day before?
I don't know.
I think it was
in the 20s.
25.
I don't know. I mean, it's on Honor Club, so I was figuring to watch on Honor Club.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it's like I like reading the Observer. And you tell me that the Impact TV show is so much better.
Oh yeah, it is.
But in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, how do they take advantage of that?
But people
because
aren't watching.
The audience is so small.
Yeah, because people aren't watching. It's on Pursuit, and even though there are people who have it, they don't even know they have it.
God, they got to be talking to anyone and everyone to try to get on some streaming service, right?
Well, it'd be great if they could get on a streaming service. I think they need to get on a television. Yeah, I mean, if someone will pay to be on a streaming service, that's a great deal to make. I'm still, wondering why DAZN hasn't. In fact, last night when we were at the thing,
the Bellator show,
yeah, people were talking to me about from Bellator. People were going, how come no one's put a pro wrestling show yet on DAZN? And I don't have an answer.
I don't. What is the fit? What is the perfect fit though? Because there's so much MMA and boxing.
I know.
Go ahead.
So, also, got to give an update on Bryan Cage. We've got to talk about serious injuries here. Actually, there were 2 serious injuries. Well,
to your pride.
I guess one of them was not a serious injury. But, so last night, first off, there was the one that everyone's heard about, which is Bryan Cage. Bryan Cage did a Spanish fly, and this is actually really ironic as I get into this here. Bryan Cage does a Spanish fly off the apron. And really, honest to God, I've seen like 50 stupider things probably this weekend than what he did.
On that show.
When you're the size of Bryan Cage, I mean, the reality is you probably shouldn't be taking bumps off the apron to the floor. I mean, it's probably just for the best. But all he had to do was like a flip bump off the apron to the floor. The other guy did the back flip. He just did a front flip. And he landed, and he jacked his back up. And he still had to keep working. And he had to finish the match, in which he won the title. And then afterwards, he was confronted by Michael Elgin, who ended up laying him out with an Elgin bomb, which I'm sure felt great on his back. And he was just... The term that I heard last night was he was effed.
Yeah.
So they
thrashed.
They took him to the hospital, and I don't know if he's actually seen a doctor. I mean, he saw whoever was at the hospital. I'm sure they did some sort of scan or whatever. But he was on Busted Open Radio today, and he claimed that he had inflammation and a bone bruise. So at least he didn't suffer like a broken back or anything like that. But as of last night, they were figuring they were going to have to rewrite television. And the last I heard, as of right before we went on the air, is he is at the show tonight. He's at the tapings, but he's not going to be working. So he probably dodged a bullet there. I mean, I know that's one of his things is
he dodged a bullet for now.
He's gigantic.
Yeah.
And he flies around. And that's awesome. It's a great gimmick. But when you're gigantic and you fly around, it's just, I don't know. Sometimes things like this happen. Now, what people are not talking about, I'm not sure why, somebody texted me this. Last night on the show, there was another Spanish fly.
Oh, yeah.
It involved Ray Phoenix, and he did a Spanish fly off a ladder to put somebody through a table, but he didn't rotate off the top rope.
Wait, and let's set this up properly here. This was a rope walk into a Spanish fly as a man stood on a ladder that he was going over the ropes with onto the ramp. He goes up in the air. He stops. Other guy rotates. He comes straight down. Could have broken his damn neck.
Well, I don't think he broke his neck, but he didn't do anything the rest of the match. And apparently he was walking around after the show, but that's two Spanish flies, and one was the guy taking the move, one was the guy delivering the move, and in both cases, somebody got injured.
Brian Cage is 35 years old, and he is large and carries a lot of weight around on that torso and a lot of pressure on that back. I get it. He does it because he can do it. It is a amazing visual. Whew. Good luck in 10 years. I just, and that's a lot of wrestlers too. You know, I'm not just pointing him out, but I mean, if he was roughed up going into this thing, which is what it sounded like from Dave and Garrett talking on Observer Radio, to take those type of risks to do that, why? You know, he didn't have to take that off the apron if his back was messed up. I mean, I know you want to give us our money's worth. I get that out of wrestlers, but you know, anybody that uses that as the excuse, uses fancy excuse, well, I got to give them their money's worth. Give me a break. You know, give yourself and your family and us your money's worth too, because what if your back goes out in the middle of the move? You know, and when it comes to Phoenix, it's just, I understand you got to do the can you top this because everybody's seen everything. So you always, okay, what can we do here? Nobody needed that. Like, it was spectacular, I guess, but like, what anybody's going to remember, they're not going to remember anything else other than you almost killed yourself by coming down directly on your neck, and you see the referee and other people just recoil back in fear.
So I got word that apparently he's okay, and I don't know how, but he's all right.
No, there's all the excuse in the world to continue doing it then.
We got a lot to get into here today. Lance off the road now after attending the Rebellion pay-per-view, working the main event in a sense, and
sort of
television tapings. Dude, you're lucky you didn't have to step in and wrestle the rest of that main event.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, what a situation.
Well, tell everyone what happened. Brian Cage almost killed himself.
Yeah, although the landing was as good as could be expected, so it's not like something went wrong, other than perhaps it was a bad plan to begin with. At the Rebel Sportsplex, there's, you know, the raised ramp to the ring, and Morrison hit Cage with Morrison. I get any shit for that. Impact hit Cage with a Spanish fly off the ramp onto the floor, and they landed it perfectly flat on the mats on the floor, but there's not a lot of give because it's the floor. And they hit, and they're laying there a while, and I rolled out and checked on John first, and he's like, check on Cage. I'm like, okay. And Cage wasn't all right. He landed very pelvis and lower back heavy, I guess, because he's a big dude taking a flip bump off. The stage was probably, I would think, at least, because it had a bit of a slope up. So where they were, I'm guessing it was at least 4 feet off the ground. And he landed hard, and he was not okay, but he's a tough son of a bitch. So he wanted to continue, so it got to be the game of John and I trying to stall. We'll get in and break the count. We'll try to buy some time. And Cage, because he's tough, wanted to still do everything that they had planned, which didn't happen. There was a lot of ad-libbing, a lot of changing. And unfortunately, I think there was, if you watched the pay-per-view, I think a lot of close-ups of their faces while they were trying to get things back on track, but they did manage to get enough of it done, and and they got the finish in, and I was really happy and quite surprised, to be honest, that many of the people I talked to, I had a friend in the crowd, many people reported, and even I checked the live running play-by-play on the Observer site, and most people thought it was good, not great. And they wondered if maybe somebody got hurt. So the fact that they didn't know for sure that, Cage destroyed himself, and they still thought it was a good match with, the limitations that were there, because there was a while where he had no strength in his legs at all. I thought that was a big win. He won, and minor considering, Cage, needed medical attention afterwards, but minor on that front. I took one bump in the match, and I took it on the floor. And I didn't think of it at the time, but I ended up bumping on a big puddle of Brian Cage's blood because he got busted open on the floor, and I didn't realize where I was taking the bump was exactly where he got busted open. And I bumped, and I immediately felt a wet spot on my cold spot on my back. And as I bumped, I put my head back, and I felt the cool. I'm like, I just put my head back in a puddle. And there was some people when I got back, they were afraid I got busted open because they saw blood on the back of my head. But I was fine, and Cage, a true professional, trying to finish and get it done. So, credit to him, but he took a bad bump and was hurting really bad.
When I first heard that he'd taken a Spanish fly off the apron of the floor and hurt himself, I was like, what a fucking moron. But then when I saw it, it was like, that wasn't that bad. I mean, literally what he did was he took like a forward roll bump off the apron. And granted, it was to the floor, which is, not the best place to take a bump. But, I mean, if I look back at the last 5 years of people doing stupid stuff off the apron, like as far as bumps involving the apron, that was one of the safer ones I've ever seen. He just happened to, he hit wrong or he hit one time too many or whatever it was, and he got hurt. But I mean, it was really no different than taking like a superplex, except you're not landing in the ring, you're landing on the floor. It wasn't that crazy. I mean, the guy doing the backflip and landing on his stomach on the floor, I mean, that was probably crazier than what he did.
Yeah, when I first heard they were doing the bump, I was more concerned with Johnny's knees or his feet.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, Cage, if you'd have taken a superplex or even, the flare slam off the top, but from slightly higher than the apron, and he landed it perfectly flat. Like, he didn't land crooked at all. But when you're, I don't know how heavy the dude is, 260, 280 pounds, that's a pretty big splat. Because I just took a flat back bump. I was on my feet standing on the floor when Johnny kicked me in the head, and I took a flat back. And I snapped that thing off, and when I hit, I was like, oh, it's like there's no give here. And it's like, it didn't injure me in any way, shape, or form, but it was like, that was a lot harder than I expected. So that big dude taking the flip bump, it's a lot of impact on your pelvis. And it might have just been, it's the old analogy of the bump card. It's like you can abuse your body so many times, and he'd maybe taken enough low back, pelvic, sciatic issue beforehand that he just punched it good and hard, and that was his body telling him, it's like, no, you don't get to do this anymore. But dude managed to stand up and get moving, and to that, he certainly deserves a lot of credit. And from all of the feedback I heard from the show, most, if not all, people thought it was a really good show, with the last 4 matches in particular being strong, and a ton of praise for the Gail Kim Tessa Blanchard match.
Hey, Jim in Virginia thought it was 5 stars, so I mean, he's as tough a critic as anybody.
Yeah, he's hard on the women with his match.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. I got the link from the office today, so I want to see it because I heard it was really good. I'm a big fan of both women. And the biggest thing for me, because I've always liked Gail, from when I first met her in, when she started in WWE. But, Gail had pretty much wrapped up her career. And she came back to do this, and I think deserves a lot of credit for that. That, she saw the opportunity to pass the torch to someone who's going to be something. And she came back for that. She's not getting a Saudi Arabia payday for doing this. She's already employed with Impact Wrestling as an agent and producer. So it's like she did this out of respect for the business and out of respect for Tessa, and it impressed the hell out of me. It's like she came back, she gave it her all, and really did the business right. And I'm old school enough to really respect that passing of the torch. And, people aren't, but WWE is trying to label John Cena as the Babe Ruth of WWE. And it's like, as far as a knockouts division in TNA, it's like, Gail really is the Bruno, the Babe Ruth, who, they made the Division 4 when it started, and she was the backbone of it for years. And for her to come back for the sole purpose of handing off as much of that to Tessa is a testament to her respect for the business and her class, in my opinion.
So I had to rewrite all the television on Monday.
Oh, Jesus.
Hey, you're just like WWE now.
Well, except we had a real reason for doing it. But, yeah, that's the thing, because I'm not part of the creative team, but because I'm tight with Don, when he brings me in, he always ropes me into sitting and going over through the TVs and stuff. So I got in Saturday night, and we got together and went over the whole, the pay-per-view, and we ran down the 2 weeks of TV we'd be filming on Monday. And the open of the first show of the TV, the first part of week 1 that we're filming on Monday is Brian Cage, coming out and talking about being the champ now. And at the time, he's at the hospital, and we have no idea if he's, even going to be able to walk the next day. And he was wrestling on the show, and it's like, we've got to rewrite everything. So it was, back to the Scott D'Amour's room at the hotel, and it's like, all right, what do we need to change? What can we keep? And it was like, it was, a hell of a night getting things salvaged, because he was supposed to wrestle at taping, and we knew that wasn't going to happen, and we didn't even know if we'd have him in the building to talk. So we had to come up with a plan A, B, and C with very little notice. But I think the plan A that we come up with worked well and got everybody where they needed to be. And that's where it's funny. Like, I don't know Jimmy Jacobs well. I interacted with him a few email back when I was, consulting with Ring of Honor, if you will. But it's like, I don't know if we could be more opposite people, but I think we get along and function well. And I think it helps. It's like he's sitting there trying to get it done, and I'm throwing ideas, and he's, there's no offense and anything else. It's like I really enjoy working with him the little bit. Again, I am not part of creative, but in that instance, I was helping to throw ideas at the wall to see how we get out of this situation.
Alrighty, well, there's that. Impact had another disaster as well this week, in that I guess the show just didn't air.
They aired last week's show again. So this week's show didn't air, and, it's been, the whole Pursuit thing's been a disaster. I think the biggest disaster of all is not so much that they aired last week's show, but that literally nobody knew that. I mean, I didn't even hear anything about it, and I didn't check my
Oh, I see. Like, there was no immediate reaction that, oh my God, this is last week's show. It was just not mentioned by anybody.
I didn't see any mention of it last night. I saw almost no mention of it today. All
right, well, Sunday we've got a Impact pay-per-view, the Slammiversary show. And what do we got?
Yeah, actually, I just finished watching tonight's Impact, because we're actually recording after it for a change, although I did watch it before it aired again. I have an I get the screener so I don't have to bombard my wife with it on television, but it's looking like a hell of a show, and I thought the go-home show tonight, if they replay it, which I think they do on Twitch, it did a hell of a job. They do a really good job of driving home all of the angles and what's going on, and we've got, Elgin and Cage for the Impact World title, which they've done a good job.
Is Brian Cage okay?
I don't know for sure. He had got, he was okay enough that he did do some bookings, but then he canceled a couple others. I'm assuming he's okay enough to go, but I honestly don't know because I haven't been at the last tapings, but I'm hoping so. They've got Rich Swann and Johnny Impact for the X Division title, which should be great. The one that I'm really interested in, and I would have thought I wouldn't like this, they're doing Sami Callihan against Tessa Blanchard. And I've mentioned here before, I'm not a fan of intergender matches, but I really think they're making this one work. Tessa is one of the strongest aggressive women I've ever seen wrestle. And I think it helps that Sami's not particularly tall, so there doesn't seem to be a massive size difference between the two. And she's so physically aggressive that they've been making it work. I'm curious what they're going to do for a finish, to be perfectly honest. But Sami versus Tessa is looking like it's going to be a hell of a match, and I'm really curious where it's going.
I'm not sure that Brian Cage has wrestled since May 12th.
Wow.
Yeah. I hope he's all right.
Well, was it last week on Impact, he did physicality in the ring and took a powerbomb over the top rope through a table.
What? This guy out of his mind?
Possibly.
Okay. As long as that's clear.
He didn't take a coffin drop bump on the apron, but he took a bump. Also, there's a Eddie Edwards Killer Cross First Blood match. There's a women's Monster Ball match, which I won't be watching because Taya's in it, and I don't want to see her do all of the hardcore stuff. But if you're into that, it's there. And Moose RVD, which I'm interested in. I'm a big fan of Moose. He really carries himself as a star. He carries himself well. People love him. He dresses the part. He's a hell of an athlete. So yeah, I think there's also, now this is again a bit of a breaking news. I just saw there was an Impact show tonight, and LAX lost the Impact tag titles to the North.
What? Wow.
I didn't see the show, but I saw it on Twitter. They posted the result, and I know they were there because I got a text from Don Callis that he was at the building in Texas, and it was like 95 degrees, and he was complaining. But yeah, the North apparently won the tag titles from LAX, so I don't know whether it'll still be LAX and the Rascalz at Slammiversary, or whether they'll be facing the North, or whether there's a three-way or what. I'm not sure, but I'm assuming that match will change somewhat. But again, we talk about giving second chances. If you haven't watched any of Impact since Don Callis and Scott D'Amore have got their legs under them and running the show, I really think you should give it a shot. If you don't get Pursuit, because boatloads of people don't, it is aired live on Twitch in the same time slot for free. I believe if you get Impact Plus, the app, you can not have to pay for a subscription, and I believe the Impact shows do go up, and you can watch them for free on the app. I'm not 1,000% sure of that, but I think you can. And they're on the Fight Network as well as Game TV in Canada. So if you haven't checked the show out, it is a hell of a lot better than you'd ever possibly imagine. The show makes sense. Everyone on it is involved in something. And also, too, if you feel like you're out of the loop, watch one show. They do an amazing job of recapping and bringing you up to speed. The show's a pretty damn good show. You should check it out.
So you mentioned in today's update that we were going to talk about the Impact pay-per-view. But because of this information and the fact that I had to record a little bit early, you didn't get to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, I've only watched like half the show.
So I watched the main event. Mm-hmm. I thought the main event was pretty good. The fans live.
So is this the Sami
Callihan and Tessa Blanchard.
Yeah.
The fans were hot for it. The announcers were like begging for her to win this match.
Right.
And it was a pretty violent match, though. Bat shots to the head. And,
Really?
Yeah, lots of stuff on the outside where he was swinging her against the guardrail. And she even got busted open, I think his bloody nose, actually, which made for a very good vision because I think she put a crossface on. And so as she was pulling, you could see the blood in her nose and her hair is all covered over her face. And I thought I was like, that would be a great finish. Obviously, it wasn't the finish. He hit package pile driver and then another pile driver to win the match. And then the crowd was super deflated.
Yeah.
It was just like took the whole air out of the building. But I mean, I imagine that that finish was whatever it was. Is there's a good reason that they didn't want her to beat him.
So the basic gist on this is this match is obviously for Tessa. That they see, Tessa being a big star. Not that they don't see Callihan being a big star too, but the match was designed to be the showcase match for Tessa and also for her to lose. Now, I've seen people on social media with this idea that Sami wouldn't do the job, and I can tell you that that had absolutely nothing to do with this whatsoever. I mean, the finish was always Tessa losing this match. And the reason, it's a weird social media thing in the sense of the fear of pushing someone to where people reject them, like Roman Reigns. So they felt that to avoid that it's better that she could get over more by losing than winning without the fear of people going like, oh God, they're putting her over guys now. So that's the psychology behind it. Of course, it's also in another sense, you could argue that it's backwards booking because you're the person that you really want to push, you're beating. And WWE has that mentality with some people too, which, I mean, because it worked with Daniel Bryan, which is the anomaly, it's not the rule, and that's why it hardly ever works. But with Tessa, I can't say that she wouldn't be the anomaly, and it might not be better this way. In fact, I would even go to where I think that they made the right call, because it's a longer chase, and the chase is the big thing. But again, I didn't see the match, so I can't really comment on the match. But I know that this was like the big showcase match for the show, even though, I mean, it pretty much been pushed as Elgin and
Cage
as the main event. And then when the show started, and I did watch the beginning of the show, and they said that for the first time they're going to have an intergender match, first time they'll ever main event a pay-per-view, which I thought, well, it is the match that people are going to talk about the most, and it's something to hold the calling card with. And I mean, everything's whatever. It's like I don't want to say I'm not a fan. I mean, generally speaking, I would say I'm not a fan of intergender matches, but I'm also not someone who's going to go like, oh, if it's working, I'm going to just deny it or whatever. It's like there's obviously a small audience for it. The fact is when I saw Tessa do the match a couple weeks ago on television, it was like, okay, she's a great worker and she can pull it off. And I saw her with Brian Cage do a match in Austin, Texas, which was absolutely phenomenal. So I know that, it's like I wouldn't want to make I wouldn't want to do it over and over and over again, because I think that's kind of, it's just a gimmick that'll run its course. But in this situation so far, I think it's probably worked. I mean, did it seem like it worked?
I mean, I don't watch the product at all, so I don't know what the expected follow-up is, or like you said, the longer chase. I thought it would have been really cool for her to win the match, though. Okay,
well, maybe it would have. Maybe they guessed wrong. You never know. I mean, you never know what the audience is. Sometimes, this is one of the things, is that sometimes...
Pay-per-view.
Impact pay-per-view was a fun show. Let me see what we got here. So it opened with four-way TJP, Trey Miguel, Jake Christ, and Willie Mack. Willie Mack did a frog splash on Jake Christ. Fun openers, spot. I mean, it was nothing great or anything like that, but it was all action, easy to watch. Then we had a three-way for the tag team title. The new champions are the North, which is Ethan Page and Jason Alexander, and they fought against Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz, and LAX, which, for an interesting note, the night before on their Twitch show, Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz had a tag team match against two of Booker T's guys. LAX had a tag team match against two of Booker T guys. Now, this is on the Impact Twitch show the night before pay-per-view where these two teams are challenging for the tag team title. Do you want to guess what the results were? Well, I kind of hinted, didn't I?
You kind of did, yeah.
Yeah, I think I gave it away. They both lost to Booker T's guys. I mean, it's not like they lost to, Pentagon and Fenix, in Mexico, or they lost to Evil and Sonata in Japan. They lost to, like, Booker T's guys that nobody's ever heard of. On their own stage, and it's not like it's just an independent show, which is like, who cares, right? It's on their own Twitch channel that they advertise and they push on television. It's like, you know what it's like? It's like we talk about WWE booking. Think about this. This is the equivalent. It's like, okay, there's SmackDown tomorrow. And let's see. What's a big match on SmackDown? Kofi Kingston against Samoa Joe, right? So this would be like Kofi Kingston and Samoa Joe, both wrestling job guys on SmackDown tomorrow, and both losing to build up the pay-per-view on Sunday.
I can almost see that happening.
Not job guys.
Maybe not job guys, but like...
Not job guys.
I could easily see them both losing.
Oh, yeah, I could too, I know. But I'm talking about job guys. Okay. Then we had a First Blood match with Killer Cross and Eddie Edwards. And the whole deal, it was all right. The whole deal is Eddie Edwards has a kendo stick. I think it's the kendo stick is like a person whose name is Kenny. It's like I don't know if it's like his dog or his best friend. It might be like a dog. I really don't know. I mean, I do watch the show, but he treats it like you would treat your dog, but it could be like his imaginary friend also. I don't know which. So the story is that Eddie Edwards hates Killer Cross and had to make him bleed, so he broke the kendo stick. He killed his dog, so the jagged edges where he stuck down Killer Cross's mouth, and he shows up and he's bleeding from the mouth. So they don't even do a blade job. They do the blood from the mouth gimmick, and Eddie Edwards wins. So match was fine. Rob Van Dam against Moose. Moose won with a spear after Rob Van Dam missed a frog splash and landed on a chair. Rob tries to do pretty much the stuff he used to do, but he's Rob would be like 48 years old, which isn't like that old. You know what the thing when I was watching is like, because there's plenty of guys I've seen at 48 that are like hella good workers. It's not like the age is that bad of a thing. But Rob, it's like he's a high flyer, or was a high flyer, and still is, I guess. But he tries to do everything he used to do, as opposed to like Jushin Liger, who at 48 was wrestling completely different than he was when he was 30. I mean, he was awesome at 48, or very good. Maybe awesome is not the right word, but pretty freaking good. Because he completely changed. He didn't try to do all the same flying spots that he did when he was younger. He changed his style. And Rob is out there doing the exact same stuff, but he's much bigger and slower and not as light on his feet, so it's like the flying looks awkward. He's got to do a new style. It just doesn't really look good. But I guess maybe when it's Rob, people want to see those moves, so he does them. So the match, the crowd wasn't much into the match. And, it wasn't like it was bad, but it was just okay. Then we had Taya, Jessica Havoc, Sue Young, and Rosemary in a Monstrous Brawl match. And this is every hardcore match you've seen in TNA or you see on your indies. It's like, I guess I don't know what it is, but I am so, like, I know that, like, Moxley and Joey Janela had a match obviously a couple, week and a half ago, or a little over a week, whatever. And they did the same style of a match, but it was better. This one, it's like, it was good. I mean, some people thought it was great. It's like stapling stuff on women, whatever, garbage cans, dog collars. We had thumbtacks. We had Taya curb stomped Rosemary into thumbtacks. It ended up where Taya threw a chair shot at Jessica Havoc, and I think, and then pinned her. So it like, if you like hardcore matches and you want to see a women's hardcore match, this was it, and you'll probably like this. I think it got over reasonably good. I know some people absolutely loved it, but it's just the same. It's just the same. But I mean, there were cool spots for sure, and they worked really, really hard. I mean, it was good. Rich Swann and Johnny Impact. So Johnny Impact, I should mention also. Oh God, I didn't even say so. In the LAX match, the North won. What happened was Santana got hurt, which was a work. Santana, they acted like his knee was out, and then the North guys double teamed and pinned Ortiz, so they lost. Short match, not anywhere near as good as I expected it to be. It was LAX's last match with the promotion, so they have offers. I don't know which side they're going with, but they have offers from both AEW and WWE. They've been recruited very heavily by WWE. I know that there's an offer from AEW. I don't know which one they're going with. I think I know. I think that's. I would say AEW's in the lead, but that doesn't mean that's where they're going. And then Johnny Impact, which brings me to Johnny Impact. Rich Swann, Johnny Impact. Actually, I thought this match was really good. There was a little bit of rough around the edges early. It wasn't super smooth, but after a couple minutes, they kind of got into it, and they're both such good athletes. And I thought the last couple minutes were absolutely great. And Swann retained the X title with 2 lethal injections and a Phoenix Splash. But the last couple minutes were, just really good stuff from both guys. And this is Johnny Impact's probable last match with the company, and his future is not as known. I mean, he can go anywhere he wants, but the thing with him, and I know that he wants to be an actor, and he knows that I know a couple months ago, he and I talked about, what's going to happen when his contract's up and what's he going to do. And, obviously AEW at this point was not a thing. So that's how many months ago it was. So it's pretty much WWE, and it's he was there, he can go back if he makes a call, but the thing was that he wants to be an actor, and he doesn't want to be one of these guys where, a part comes that will help his acting career, and WWE nixes it because they got him under contract. So at that time, and I don't know, things can always change, but I don't, it's like WWE was not necessarily the place that he would want to go, but at the same time, with WWE throwing a lot of money around and knowing that he could go to AEW, I could see him getting really a hell of an offer, because guys are getting hell of offers, and if the money's that good, I know, look, we've seen enough guys. There are guys who will go with the money, a lot of them, and there are guys who won't. And I don't know how much his acting means to him at this point in his life, but if it's something he really wants to do, then WWE's probably not the thing to do. But anyway, so that's what's up with Johnny Impact. Brian Cage and Michael Elgin for the championship. All kinds of big moves. These guys were really good. Michael Elgin's really a hell of a wrestler. And Cage can do some pretty impressive things for a guy his size. Sometimes I think he tries to do too much, but that's kind of his gimmick, is that he's this 200 and whatever he is now, and he's big. He's freaking huge, and he's doing all the flying and everything like that. Sometimes it's like a step slow, sometimes it's just absolutely amazing, but great near falls. Elgin does all of his stuff, and Elgin did a buckle bomb. Elgin went for Canadian Destroyer, and in the middle of the move, Cage blocked it, sat down on him, and got the pin. Excellent match. Elgin immediately hit him with a belt shot after the match, and then Elgin grabbed Don Callis and argued with Don Callis, grabbed Don Callis, had him in the ring. He was about to powerbomb Don Callis when a masked man speared him, and it was in fact Rhino. Everyone knew in the building it was Rhino. He was wearing a mask, and people were even chanting "Gore, Gore, Gore." So he wore a mask because his WWE contract actually ends in a week. So he really, not his contract, the 90 days notice, but he showed up. I guess maybe his thing is that he wore a mask. I don't know. Or maybe just he didn't do a match, or whatever. Maybe they just did it. I don't know. So that's what happened there. And then the main event was Tessa Blanchard and Sami Callihan. So if you are someone who is predisposed to hate intergender matches, you will miss everything, because these two had a great match. I'm not a fan, for all the reasons. I mean, it's like, if it's done great, look, anything that's done great, I'm fine with. And this was done great. Sami Callihan won with a, what was the deal? Package pile driver, and then a regular pile driver. It was a clean win. They went back and forth. Tessa's fantastic. Sami Callihan worked great with her. This match was as good as, not the best matches on the New Japan show, but it was as good as the fourth best match on the New Japan show, which is really high praise, by the way. So it was a hell of a main event, and they were pushing the idea that it's first intergender main event on a pay-per-view in history, which I guess it probably was. Well, I'm sure it was. And that's the basic gist of the story. Good show, though. Especially the last couple matches. Last couple matches were great.
But yeah.
Tell us about these Impact tapings.
Yeah, two things. Actually, I just looked through the Observer, and I just want to make a correction on Dave's part, because he actually made a mistake.
Uh-oh.
The last week's show, which was the mashup show where they did basically a lethal lottery with weird partner tags and stuff, Dave reported that the crowd was small at these Windsor tapings for these shows, probably because they've been doing too many tapings in Windsor, and it's like that show wasn't even taped in Windsor. It was a different taping altogether. I was at the Windsor tapings, and the building that we ran the time before was full again with a really great crowd. So the reports of, we were told the crowd was way down in Windsor, it wasn't even Windsor. It was a small venue somewhere else that they did the mashup show at. The Windsor tapings that I was at was, again, I don't know how many people were there, but the building that they run was jam-packed again. So Dave mistaken the mashup show for being taped in Windsor, and it was not. But it was weird because RVD was there, and actually got the agent in RVD.
Yeah, there was RVD there and on Raw. That was interesting.
Yeah, he's going to actually have a match on, I don't think it's this week, I think it's next week. He will be wrestling.
Is he not under contract?
I have a feeling he's under a contract where he can wrestle for Impact, but he's free to do other appearances, would be my guess. Because as soon as I saw it, I just shot a text to Don. It's like, Rob's on Raw. It's like, I just agented his match 2 days ago. And his response was, is he wrestling? And I'm like, no, he's in his gear and he's on stage. And then I never heard back from him. So I assume he doesn't have an exclusive, you can only work for us thing. But I suspect perhaps it's a wrestling thing only. I don't know. But I would imagine he has a contract. It may not be exclusive. I don't ask Rob what his contractual status is, but I got to agent his match, which was fun. Because again, Rob and I go way back and have worked a lot of matches together, and Rob's still Rob. But yeah, it was just interesting. It was a huge double take when he walked out on Raw. I'm like, wait a minute, he was on Impact like 2 days ago.
Funny how that happens.
Yep.
All right, so what's up with the Impact TV?
Well, they were hoping to get on Access, and they're not on Access yet, and it's not looking good. The big deal was that Anthem was trying to buy, and this has actually been going on since December. There've been negotiations going on for Anthem and Leonard Asper to buy Access, and the deal, I don't know that it's dead, but it's not looking strong right now. And see, the whole deal with Impact going to Pursuit was that it was like a holding pattern. It's like, we don't have a contract with the station, so we're going to buy Access. That's going to take a while because these deals just don't snap your fingers and get made. So they figured it's going to take several months to buy Access, and then Impact would move to Access. So they couldn't go to a station and sign like a 1-year deal because they didn't, and who's going to take them for the show's going to be on your station until we pull it. No one's going to take that deal. So this Pursuit thing was like, considered like just a stopgap measure of something to keep the show on the air while they negotiate this deal. But now that this deal is not such a sure thing, now it's kind of a bad situation right now. So we'll have to wait and see how this all plays out.
Impact
taped in Mexico. They are going to do Bound for Glory's October 20th. And there's going to be a match with Michael Elgin against Naomichi Marufuji, which is an interesting match. I don't know, like, the appeal of it, but, I think it's probably going to be a really great match. And a lot of Mexicans. Wagner was on that show. It's interesting. There's going to be a lot of AAA guys on the AEW show on pay-per-view, and then there's going to be a lot of AAA guys on Bound for Glory on October 20th. But they'll probably be different guys. It's like I don't know. Some of this whoever's again, a lot of it depends on who has visas too. But looked like Fabi Apache, is going to do something maybe with Taya or maybe with Taya. I don't know.
A lot to talk about here, Dave. What'd you think?
Well, I think we should probably talk about the Access thing first, because I think that's pretty much. There's a lot of big stories today, but I think that's probably the biggest. Anthem purchased Access, the majority interest in HD. I should say, Access TV, and what is it? Also the HDNet movies. So, the key thing as far as wrestling goes, Access has Women of Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling, and obviously one of the keys of this deal, and this deal's been negotiated since pretty much the start of the year, was very close to closing in around June, kind of hit a snag, and in the last week or so, I guess it really picked up. When I wrote the thing in the Observer last week, I knew it was pretty close. Talking about just the history of Anthem with the Fight Network and everything. And from the very beginning, actually the Fight Network actually started with a guy named Mike Garrow, who I knew from actually the very start of the Fight Network. He was always trying to talk to me about doing stuff with it, and we went to some of the Fight Network parties early on and everything. And then it lost enough money to where he had to sell, and the Asper family, ended up buying it. And the Fight Network has affiliates in different parts of the country. They always wanted to get into the United States. I mean, from day one, that was like the goal, was to get the thing in the United States. Now, I don't know if AXS will turn into the Fight Network. I don't know, whatever changes are going to be made. Who knows exactly what they are? Nothing's really been said, other than part of this deal is that Impact will get on AXS. So that will give them, I mean, it's a lot better than the Pursuit channel. It's not TBS or TNT or USA Network or anything like that. But it's something. It's a lot better than what they've got. It's I'm trying to think, like, compared to the other channels that they were on. The last channel that they were on, which was let's see, they were Destination America. And what was the other one that they were on?
They had Destination America, Pursuit.
What was not Pursuit? Pursuit has just been, it's barely on television. I mean, it exists, but I mean, like the audience is like 10,000 or less. But before that, they were on what was it? What were the two channels that they were on afterwards that they got canceled from? Destination America was the one they got canceled from first, and then it was Pop TV. And Pop TV was actually in a lot more homes than AXS TV. I'm trying to think if I think the other one, Destination America, was as well. So it'd still be in less homes than before. But it's an upgrade. Now, what that means, I mean, the other questions is what does that mean for WOW? What does it mean for New Japan? And I don't know the answer to that. I do know that... Yeah,
so actually it was Spike, then Destination America, then Pop, then Pursuit.
Right, exactly. And so as far as, like, what happens, I know, though, like, Cindy, who handled PR, already said that she's gone. So I expect a lot of changes, what they all are. I mean, there's going to be a lot of change in the station. So what that means as far as New Japan goes, it's too early to tell. It's just too early to tell what's going to happen. And the other part of that is that does Anthem owning the channel put pressure on New Japan to have a working agreement with Impact to keep their American TV? Could that be part of the deal? And then what would New Japan do at that point? And just don't know. It's so for both of those, for the two shows that are on there right now, and a lot of the other programming, I think it's a wait and see. But I mean, part of this deal for sure is Impact ends up on that channel. I mean, that's been a key to these negotiations from the very start. So that's kind of the main thing over there.
Impact Wrestling's Victory Road, which will be taking place from Enid, Oklahoma, on the Impact Plus streaming service, your home for the entire history of NWA TNA / Impact Wrestling, all 3,000 hours that they tout. That's available. And the card for that show, I will run down here for you real quick. Now, Impact has made a lot of news over the weekend, over this week, including the fact that Ken Shamrock seems to be headed into the promotion to face off against Moose in October. The former Quinn Ojanaka, Moose, the former football player for the Atlanta Falcons and the New England Patriots, whose name was getting out there a little bit for Ring of Honor a couple of years ago. He was managed by Stokely Hathaway. He signed on with Impact, and unfortunately, he and Mike Bennett both came in around the same time, and obviously we know what happened with Mike Bennett in Impact and his subsequent run in WWE. But Moose has kind of been spinning wheels there a little bit, and had a long feud with Eddie Edwards for a while, and apparently is involved now with facing off against MMA guys, including Stephan Bonner, who will be facing off with tonight. There's Taya Valkyrie against Rosemary for the Knockouts title. Ethan Page and Josh Alexander against Rich Swann and Fuego del Sol. TJP against Michael Elgin. Sami Callihan against Hawk. Eddie Edwards against Rohit Raju. And Kira Hogan against Desi Dorada. Now, I got to be honest, I have not seen that much Impact, so there are several names, including Hawk and Raju and Dorada, who I am not familiar with at all. So I'm going to have to try to check this out and see how things are. Guess I'm going to have to bone up on my Impact, since they're now going to be a integral part of all of our wrestling lives, right? I mean, that's what they're getting buying access. That's what the whole point of this is, correct? Right? I mean, last night was the last airing of Friday Night Mixed Martial Arts on Access. It was a Legacy Fighting Alliance show from Wichita, Kansas. Ron Kruk called the show. It's his last with the channel. He's been with Access and HDNet since 2004. And Friday night, as Dave Meltzer has talked about a lot, did a little bit on Thursday on this show as well as on the shows on the website for subscribers. You know, Friday night had long been the Mixed Martial Arts night on the channel. The former show with Kenny Rice and Bas Rutten, MMA Tonight was on there, as well as shows like Legacy Fighting and many other smaller shows that they would run on Friday nights, and it would be some of their most popular programming. But that's all over with now. Cindy Ronzoni, who handled public relations, was one of the first cuts. Andrew Simon, who headed the fight department, was also axed this week, as was Adam Swift, the former vice president of legal affairs, and he was the one who actually presented Simon with the idea of bringing New Japan Pro Wrestling to the channel. And staff from all of the offices that Access has, Denver and Dallas and Los Angeles, everybody was affected. The staff has, at minimum, been cut in half. Dave reported in this week's newsletter that between 40 to 80 of the company's estimated 100 employees are now looking for work, and it feels like Anthem has bought the channel primarily as a vehicle to feature Impact. I guess operating under the idea that they can still somehow, some way bring the company back to their prime, quote unquote. I guess that would have been when the show was on Spike TV, and they seemed to score a 1.1 rating and had 1.4 million viewers no matter what else was happening in the world. Football didn't affect that rating. Politics didn't affect that rating. Goats being sacrificed didn't affect that rating. Nothing affected that rating. For the longest time, that's where they were at, and maybe that's what Anthem is thinking. Maybe they are thinking that they can get that sliver of fan base back. You know, right now on Pursuit, which has got no clearance whatsoever, they're apparently doing 10,000 people a week or under. It's possible that through their Twitch stream and through other possible outlets that they're getting far more views than they're actually getting on traditional television. And, you know, the Spike TV days were a long time ago. And they were on a majority of cable and satellite systems, and Access isn't. You know, it's on more platforms than Pursuit's got for sure, but they still got a long road of clearances to go at a time where there seems to be a lot of contraction, which may be the reason that Mark Cuban got out of being the majority owner of that thing. And when you look at the lineups for the Fight Network in Canada, you know, as well as what they have offered in the United States and internationally, there ain't much there. You know, there's some MMA and boxing and kickboxing that's not available on ESPN Plus or on UFC Fight Pass, but, you know, there's just not a whole lot there. And I'm going to venture a guess that even though they're cutting all these people from the MMA department at Access, they're still probably going to be in the business airing as much of this stuff as possible. It's just going to be based out of Toronto as opposed to the States. You know, so what else can they do from there to draw eyeballs to the channel? You know, and to their crown jewel, which is Impact in their eyes. And, you know, there's the Steve Harvey portion of the proceedings here, too, and he's obviously being brought in for a reason, you know, none of which likely has anything to do with the wrestling part. It's likely more for original content creation and the music programming, which has been a major part of Access and HDNet since the inception of the channel. You know, the library of concert performances certainly gives Anthem something to build on that way. But it's the other side of the coin, you know, with the canvas mat stuff is where things start getting sketchy. And a lot of people have noted, and rightly so, that Anthem has given no votes of confidence to either New Japan or WOW, which is about to begin their new season. But at least in the case of New Japan, they have a contract that runs through January of 2021. And the company's outdated weekly digest show does air on the Canadian version of the channel. So despite any long-standing bad blood on New Japan's side, there's going to be business that needs to be done. Now, how both sides go about doing that business is going to be very interesting as we go along. Ed Nordholm did note this week, and when talking to Multi-Channel News and with other sources, that the twos have a broadcast relationship in Canada when it comes to the Fight Network and TV Asahi. But now that there's a different dynamic with Impact's parent company controlling New Japan's U.S. television rights now on HDNet, everything's probably going to shift. And we'll talk about it a little bit more after the break, but to me, if I'm Impact, you got to do whatever you can to try to make New Japan happy. And I know it's going to have to check their ego, and I know they're going to have to do some kowtowing, but I think that's something they're going to have to do. Want to get your thoughts on it as well, too? You can let me know at SemperVV on Twitter or 1-800-878-PLAY. We'll be back. Wrestling Observer Live.
We'll be again. Other points in between.
Mike SemperVV here with you, Wrestling Observer Live. Welcome back to the show. Man, I'm looking at this Fight Network lineup. The amount of hours of Impact that are available to you. Wednesday, this past Wednesday, September 11th, there was non-stop TNA. There was total non-stop action. There was the only time they took a break from TNA programming in the United States on the Fight Network was to give you Smash Wrestling, an hour of that, and KOTV Boxing Classics. That's about the only stuff that was on there that was not TNA Legends, TNA Greatest Matches, TNA Retrospectives. Hoo boy. Yeah. A lot of old events and specials from the 3,000 hours of TNA and Impact that Anthem owns. And guess what, folks? You won't need access for that. You don't need the Fight Network for that. You can get your fix of that by going to Pluto TV or going to Twitch and just watching the existing free streaming channels of Impact Wrestling that Anthem has put out there. I mean, you can probably get enough that way. As part of those archives, you can see a mountain of incompetence, not the least of which was the less than stellar Impact presentations of people such as Hiroshi Tanahashi, Shinsuke Nakamura, Kazuchika Okada, Tetsuya Naito, all of which, by the way, that happened to be at the time working for New Japan Pro Wrestling. In fact, 3 of those 4 men still do. Nakamura likes to surf now in WWE. But, yeah. So you can understand if you're New Japan and you had your future superstar sent over to the United States and you were told to be very careful with him. When you saw him in a feud against Samoa Joe or alongside Samoa Joe with the Pope D'Angelo Dinero, having him tied up, I believe, in his underwear and whipping him backstage while calling out Samoa Joe, you can see why they wouldn't be too happy. Hiroshi Tanahashi appeared on Explosion, which was the Fox Sports. I don't even know what that show was. I think it was the regional Fox channels that had that once the show went to Spike. And they had the syndicated quote-unquote show. That's where Hiroshi Tanahashi appeared. They made some mind-numbing decisions. And New Japan is still incredibly salty about that. And I don't blame them for being. And Ed Nordholm can't blame them for being. And Don Callis, who is an incredibly intelligent man, can't be surprised by that. So, if I'm Anthem, I need New Japan. At least I think that they need New Japan. And if I'm thinking that they need New Japan, I'm also thinking that they probably need to be very careful with how they approach New Japan because of the past bad feelings. Now, granted, Vince Russo and Dixie Carter and that whole regime, that whole era of Impact is gone. But the name remains and the bad feelings remain. But this could be a real ripe time right now for Anthem to kind of get on bended knee here and not flex too much and to try to do something with New Japan. Because you see where New Japan's relationship with Ring of Honor is right now. There seem to be guys that wrestle for New Japan who don't want to wrestle for Ring of Honor, that don't want to worry about their working relationship, that have no interest in it. You have New Japan being on the outs with AEW for obvious reasons. They were in competition with each other over talent. They were starting up a company that was going to not only do damage to their American partner, but also do damage to their American expansion in the United States because they wouldn't have a full-time Kenny Omega. So, is there a hole to punch through here? There might be. And I don't think flexing around or giving votes of no confidence or really just not giving a vote of confidence to New Japan, I don't think that that's the best way to go about doing things. I hope they're not taking a strong arm approach here because there may be something ripe here to work with, at least down the line. Not right away, but down the line. New Japan, I'm sure, is very loyal to Ring of Honor. But the way things are going right now with Ring of Honor, if I'm New Japan, maybe I sit back and take a look at some things. Now, I'm not sure what Anthem can provide that New Japan, the Ring of Honor at least can't. But if they're not happy with the situation, and they may not be right now, well, what can Anthem provide for you? How can they help you out? What can they do? And New Japan programming on there is going to remain until January of 2021. We know that for sure. But where will it air? And what demands will Anthem put on it? Some people were wondering, are they going to try to put pressure on New Japan? You know, and people had speculated, what could that possibly mean down the line? Could they threaten their time slot? What could happen here? Don't know. There's a lot of things still to be determined. But in my opinion, if I'm looking at this and I'm looking at it, if I'm Anthem and if I'm AXS and Impact, I've got to at least try. You got to try. They don't have their working relationship, I don't believe, with Noah anymore. I guess MLW has that. You know, I guess they could have a relationship with All Japan. You know, they could reach out to some other groups, but, you know, AEW, because of Kenny Omega being there, you know, I don't think anybody's going to be running a line from DDT to Impact. You know, it's going to be DDT to AEW, Big Japan to AEW. So it'll be interesting here, and maybe there's going to be a hole to punch through. And, you know, think about what else could they possibly air on that channel? And I understand that Anthem's got some e-games and fantasy sports things that they're involved with, and maybe that could migrate itself to AXS. I don't know. You know, VSiN is a burgeoning network. That's the Brent Musburger gambling network. As gambling and sports gaming expands state by state in the United States, maybe that's a niche that they could possibly fill. You know, since they seem to be into, you know, niche lifestyle programming, whether it be wrestling or whether it be gaming or fantasy sports or that sort of stuff. Maybe that's something that they could try to jump on, that they can give them a little bit of an advantage somewhere. But if they're going to base this thing around wrestling and they're really looking at Impact being that thing, you know, they're going to need all the help they can get, and, you know, maintaining a good relationship with New Japan is going to be a good start. So, interested to see what you think about that as the week goes on. 1-800-878-PLAY.
Tonight, it is Impact Wrestling Bound for Glory. Brian Cage versus Sami Callihan for the Impact World title. Taya Valkyrie versus Tennille Dashwood for the Knockouts title. Jake Christ, who is the X Division champion, versus Tessa Blanchard, Daga, Ace Austin, and Ace Romero in a ladder match. We have two aces here in this company. Tag team champions The North will defend against Rich Swann and Willie Mack, and RVD and Rhino in a triple threat. We got Michael Elgin and Naomichi Marufuji. We got Moose and Ken Shamrock. We got the Radicals versus Dr. Wagner Jr., Aerostar, and Taurus. And we have a Call Your Shot gauntlet match where the winner gets a future shot at the Impact title of their choosing.
This is the best AAA show I've heard of in a while. It feels as random as.
This is the most random show I have seen in forever. But I am
Josh
watching
Matthews
it tonight.
taping it on his phone?
I am watching it tonight, everybody. You too can watch it on Fight TV, starting at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. And Dave Meltzer and I will be covering it later on tonight, Wrestling Observer Radio. I'll be tweeting about it all night. So let's start with the Bound for Glory show. What did you think?
I didn't think it was real good at all. I thought some of the matches were good. I don't think anything really was a blow-away match. Tessa Blanchard was great. That's about the one thing I would say. And let me see. That Rumble match, that gauntlet was freaking terrible. Taya and Tenille was not good. I was disappointed in that match. The three-way, which was RVD turned heel on Rhino. So it was
RVD turned heel. Yeah. 2019. I couldn't even believe my eyes.
Whatever. It was just an angle. That match was all right.
It is, but he's like one of those guys. Who wants to boo Rob Van Dam?
Nobody. I know what you mean. It's yeah.
I mean, if Rhino turned on Rob Van Dam, then it's like, okay, well, Rob Van Dam will get over as a babyface. Rhino can be the heel, but Rob Van Dam is a heel.
Rob Van Dam and Rhino as a feud feels 20 years ago.
Well, it was 20 years ago.
I know. That X ladder match was good. Ken Shamrock and Moose.
Actually, Michael Elgin and Marufuji was good. It was just a dead crowd until the end.
The crowd was tough, though.
They worked a total Japanese-style match in front of a TNA crowd or an Impact Wrestling crowd in Chicago. And they just didn't even know what they were watching. But by the end, they actually got into the last minute or two. But man, oh man, these guys were in here just pounding on each other, and the place was dead.
Yeah, I don't think that it's so much Japanese as much as it's Marufuji. There was no connection to Marufuji whatsoever with this crowd, and so they were just doing it, and the people just there was no interest in the match, but the match itself ended up being good. Shamrock and Moose.
Actually, I want to say something about the ladder match.
Okay.
So they signed AC Romero, who's huge. This giant dude.
Oh, yeah. He's not giant, but he's like 450 pounds.
I classify that as giant. One way or the other.
Well, he's fat. I don't classify giant to me.
How about gigantic? That all right?
He's enormous.
Okay, he's gigantic. So he's climbing up this ladder, and they did the spot where Tessa Blanchard tips over the ladder, and he's on it. And he's on this ladder, and he positions the ladder so it's not under the belt. So, like, he couldn't even get the belt if he wanted. And unfortunately, they shoot it so you can see that. And even the announcers are talking about it. So I just knew, dude, this guy's falling off this ladder to a table outside. She tips this ladder over, and he goes falling. He hits his legs on the top rope, but it doesn't break his fall. It just kind of makes him go even more cattywampus. He falls through a table on the floor, 450 pounds off a ladder through a table on the floor, and then the ladder falls out of the ring and falls on top of him. Somebody on Twitter posted an animated GIF of a Roadrunner cartoon where Wile E. Coyote falls off the cliff and crashes, and then the boulder falls on top of him for good measure. That's exactly what happened in this match. It was totally insane, but he lived. And then Tessa Blanchard was up there to get the belt, but Ace Austin knocked her off and got the belt. They're clearly trying to build her up to eventually winning one of the men's titles. And she was the best guy. She was the best person in this all guys match except for her. So
she's awesome.
She's great.
I just hope that she, gets some national exposure, because she is probably my favorite woman wrestler to watch, except for maybe Satomura. I mean, even more than Io Shirai. I don't know why. I guess because she's just so intense, and every time she was doing something, everything looks good that she does. That's the thing. It's when you watch, guys, and this is not a gender thing, but a lot of people, that can get really, really, especially with the level of experience she has, where they'll work really, really hard, but sometimes their stuff doesn't look all that good. It's like everything she does looks good. She's awesome. Shamrock and Moose was the exact opposite. It was, I will give, Ken Shamrock.
The video package was unbelievable.
The video package was great, but Ken Shamrock did dives and stuff, but it was a bad match. It was freaking bad.
Ken Shamrock tried a flip dive over the top, and as God is my witness, the Moose saved his life.
Oh, Moose!
I mean, Shamrock is going head first towards the ground. He's 55 years old. Like, he looks. I mean, he's in great shape. I can't really say he looks
he's
great.
He's got a great body for 55.
Yes, but 55-year-old's falling right to his head. I mean, this guy would have been broken neck, dead, whatever. And Moose freaking grabs him out of midair and sets him down. Like the greatest catch in the history of wrestling. And then Shamrock tries another dive later. He does a Pescado later.
Yeah, but that was a lot safer.
Frankensteiner, all of this stuff.
Fine. I mean, he's doing stuff, but the match just didn't work at all. It was so bad.
It was bad, but that video package was so good. Shamrock's promo was great. Moose was great. Moose went to Shamrock's gym, allegedly, which I think was Syndicate in Vegas, and he starts beating up Ken Shamrock's trainees. It was so good. And then Frank Trigg does this interview, and he says, Shamrock's older, he's slower, he's not as strong, he's got 2 moves, armbar and an ankle lock. I'm so certain that Moose could win, I may just sit in the back and have a cup of coffee. He was good. This was great.
Trigg is really good at this.
Yes.
I mean, he was good the last time he was in TNA. He's got that low key smarmy thing going.
Yes.
Where you just hate him, and he doesn't have to do a lot to get you to hate him because he's so cocky. So yeah. But at the end of the day, it fucking sucked. You know what I mean?
It did not live up to the hype.
It's like Trigg interfering. I mean, I just wanted it over, and it's like, it's sad because Ken did show up in great cosmetic shape, and he worked as hard as he could, but it just, Moose is still whatever. It didn't work. It wasn't good. And then main event was pretty much what you expect. You had a lot of blood. Brian Cage retained the title. He, to his credit, he did a lot of his flips and dives. But he did have intensity. They did an angle where, Sami Callihan injured his wife on their wedding night. So they had their little storyline and everything. So,
it was a hardcore match. I'll give him that much.
It was a hardcore match. It was a bloody match. There was a lot of weapons, thumbtacks. I think that there's an overdoing of these hardcore matches. It's like if you see them every once in a while and they're unique, it's good. But when you see them over and over again, I don't know. When I was watching like the thumbtacks and everything, it's like I've seen this.
It's not my thing, but if you're doing a storyline where some guy tried to ruin he tried to beat up his woman or whatever on the guy's wedding night. I mean, I don't want him in there doing lockups. They should be in there trying to kill each other, and that's what they did.
But not thumbtacks though. When you start doing the thumbtacks, then it's like that's bullshit fighting. You know what I mean? Like if you're in a fight, you may want chairs. Yes, okay, I could see that. But when you're and a lot of punches and kicks and pile drivers and all that. But once you start pouring the thumbtacks out there, then you're just doing that like.
Well, the crazy guy poured out the thumbtacks, not the guy seeking revenge. Yeah, he just used them at the end.
Yeah, but it's like thumbtacks. I mean, thumbtacks, it's like it's an easy pop, but it's like you take a bump in thumbtacks. It's like I don't know. I think it takes away the realism because that okay, these guys are just doing this masochistic stuff. It's not like you would do it you don't pour thumbtacks on the ground in a real fight. And if you want to make that thing into a real fight, and it's like I know thumbtacks get a pop, but if I see it too much, I don't want to see it. And I've seen it too much.
All right, a couple of other wrestling notes before we talk about this DVD that we just watched. Sami Callihan beat Brian Cage for the Impact title, and that was at the TV taping?
Yeah, so I think that they're going to go with so that'd be on the show that airs on Tuesday. So, obviously, I mean, I've always known they're going with Sami Callihan and Tessa Blanchard for the championship. That's the direction, and presumably, at some point Tessa wins. I know people were mad that she didn't win the X title, but you got to have patience. I mean, when people are doing that, I go like, do you, it's like everyone's really impatient, and it's like, especially when it's going to happen. I guess maybe the problem is they're so used to WWE where, there's something that the fans want and they don't get it. You're gonna get it at some point, I think. I don't know that, and that's no one told me, but I watch it and I know those guys. You'll get it at some point.
Yeah,
and not quickly, hopefully.
And this is their first actual regular TV show coming up Tuesday, right?
The first Tuesday of a regular TV as opposed to just like clip shows, yeah.
And have you heard if they are changing anything about the TV or if it's going to be what it's been? Because, starting off with a
new station,
with the title and with changing your title, they're definitely trying to start hot.
Yeah.
Also announced Sami Callihan and Tessa Blanchard for the world title at Impact's Hard to Kill pay-per-view.
Yeah. So they're doing it. It's probably going to get more attention than anything else they would do. So in that sense, it's smart. They've been building it for a long, long time. I've watched Tessa Blanchard against guys. The matches are good. So, there's still a part of me that the idea of a woman challenging for the male heavy, 100 and whatever Tessa weighs, and I don't know what it is, but it's not a lot. Because she's not that tall, for one thing. I mean, she's very strong. But someone the size of Tessa, a woman the size of Tessa, winning the World Heavyweight Championship of a major organization is still, I don't know if it's the right thing. I mean, it'll be the right thing. For a small audience, yes, it is. For the big audience, probably not. But Impact isn't drawing a big audience, so maybe for them it's okay.
One thing about Impact, one of the characters that people are not talking about, which I don't understand, is Johnny Swinger. I love Johnny Swinger. Oh my gosh, is he funny? Have you seen him? He's like he's an old 80s wrestler. He talks about Rizats, and he wants Petey Williams to carry his bag. Oh my gosh, is that funny?
Yeah. It's a spoof on the fanny pack generation, drug generation of wrestlers. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, he was talking about paying his dues, how he had to wash Baba's ass. Oh my gosh, it's really, really inside. But
they do a lot of, everyone in wrestling. I do have to say this. Almost everyone in wrestling is doing a lot of inside, and I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing, because it's like, I don't know that people get it all. I watch Impact. I don't know. They're trying to do. They try to do stuff with their guys. They do a lot of segments. It's just weird. It's like they just push Tessa Blanchard so hard as a guy. You know what I mean? It's just.
That's the gimmick. She's fighting for the guy's title.
I know. I don't know if I'm like. It's like. It's just kind of weird. I mean, it feels. She's really great. She's really great. She's got the intensity to pull it off. I mean, it's like it doesn't bother me, but when I watch, they got this guy, Sawyer, it's not Sawyer Fulton, Madman Fulton, who's like 6'7" and maybe 320 pounds. And, she's going back and forth with him. I mean, it's not even that bad. I mean, I'm watching it going this should be awful. It's really not that bad because she's that good, but still, it's not that good either. It's not like it's that good. It's just kind of like, this is, it's a push. I mean, we've seen worse, but it's a push.